September 1941. Buchenwald concentration camp, Germany. A Soviet prisoner of war captured during the Wehrmacht's rapid advance into Russia is marched into what appears to be a medical examination room. It's a converted horse stable, but he doesn't know that. The SS guards tell him he's here for a height measurement, a routine medical check. Standard procedure for new arrivals. He's exhausted, starving, confused after weeks in a prisoner of war camp and days of transport to this place. But at least it's not a gas chamber. At least it's just a medical exam. He's positioned against the wall, told to stand straight. A measuring device is mounted there, a vertical scale like you'd see in any doctor's office. He places his head against it, trying to stand as tall as possible. Behind the wall, invisible to him, an SS executioner from Commando 99 raises a pistol. There's a small hole in the wall, concealed in the measuring device. The prisoner never sees it. He hears a loud crack, feels a massive impact at the base of his skull, and then nothing. A single bullet to the back of the neck, fired at point-blank range, destroying the medulla oblongata instantly. Death comes in seconds. His body collapses to the brown-painted floor, the color chosen specifically to hide the blood. Guards drag the corpse through a door to a waiting cart. The floor is hosed down, and 5 minutes later, another Soviet prisoner is brought in for his medical examination. Before we descend into this horror, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. We uncover the truths that history tried to bury. Trust me, what's coming next will change how you see the mechanics of genocide, the psychology of executioners, and why the SS chose this specific method to kill 8,000 men. The German term is genickschuss, literally translated neck shot, a single bullet fired into the back of the neck at the base of the skull, the anatomical region called the nape, or in German, the genick. The bullet enters through the spine, destroys the brainstem and medulla oblongata, the part of your brain that controls breathing, heart rate, and consciousness. If the shot is placed correctly, death is nearly instantaneous. The victim drops unconscious within a second, dead within 5 to 10 seconds as the heart stops and breathing ceases. It's considered one of the most efficient execution methods ever devised because it requires only a single bullet, causes minimal suffering if done correctly, and leaves little mess compared to shooting someone in the chest or head. The Nazis didn't invent it. The Soviets used neck shooting extensively during their Great Purge in the 1930s, executing hundreds of thousands of political prisoners with a bullet to the back of the head. But the Nazis perfected it, industrialized it, turned it into a factory process, complete with specialized facilities designed to deceive victims until the final second. The facility is called a Genickschussanlage, neck shooting facility. It's the physical infrastructure designed specifically for surprise executions. And what makes it truly horrifying isn't just that it kills people, it's that it tricks them. The victims don't know they're being executed until the bullet enters their brain. They think they're having their height measured, or receiving a medical examination, or being processed for work assignments. They stand calmly, cooperatively, positioning themselves for death without resistance because they don't realize what's happening. This psychological deception is central to why the SES preferred this method. It eliminates panic, eliminates fighting, eliminates the need to physically restrain struggling victims. It makes mass execution run smoothly, efficiently, quietly, and it protects the executioners from the psychological trauma of watching people beg for their lives. Buchenwald concentration camp, located near Weimar in East-Central Germany, established in July 1937, was one of the first and largest concentration camps on German soil. By 1941, it held tens of thousands of prisoners, political opponents, Jews, Roma, Jehovah's Witnesses, homosexuals, criminals, resistance members from occupied countries. But in late 1941, Buchenwald's mission expands dramatically. Hitler orders the extermination of Soviet commissars, the political officers embedded in Red Army units who are committed communists, ideologically dangerous, likely to organize resistance in POW camps. The order comes down from the Reich Security Main Office. All Soviet commissars and politically unreliable elements must be eliminated. The Wehrmacht, the regular German army, hands over tens of thousands of Soviet prisoners to the SS for special treatment. Everyone knows what that means. But wait until you hear how they actually did it, because the system they created at Buchenwald represents the epitome of bureaucratized, industrialized murder. In 1941, the SS at Buchenwald establishes a special killing unit, Commando 99. The name is deliberately obscure, just a number, revealing nothing about its actual function. Commando 99 consists of a handful of SS guards, led by SS Stabsscharführer Wolfgang Otto, who oversees the technical operation of the execution facility and keeps the records, such as they are. Their workspace is a converted horse stable in the SS riding hall, located just outside the main camp perimeter. From the outside, it looks like exactly what it used to be. A stable building, wooden structure, nothing remarkable. Inside, it's been transformed into a death factory. The facility design is simple but brilliant in its deception. The building is divided into rooms. The main room is where victims are brought, one at a time or sometimes in small groups. Along one wall is what appears to be a standard medical height measuring device, a vertical ruler mounted on the wall with a horizontal bar that can be adjusted up and down to measure someone's height. But behind that wall is a second room, hidden from the victim's view. In the wall, concealed within or just below the measuring device, is a small hole or slit, perhaps 2 to 3 centimeters across. An executioner stands in the hidden room with a pistol, usually a Walther P38 or similar 9mm weapon. When a victim positions his head against the measuring scale, his neck is perfectly aligned with that hole. The executioner fires. The bullet passes through the hole, through the wall, and into the victim's neck. Death is instantaneous. The victim never sees it coming. The floor of the execution room is painted brown. This isn't decorative. It's functional. Blood is red. Brown hides blood. After each execution, guards hose down the floor. The brown paint conceals any remaining bloodstains, so the next victim walks into what appears to be a clean room, seeing no evidence of what just happened. Outside the execution room, bodies are loaded onto wooden carts with 2 wheels, the kind you might use for moving hay or supplies. These carts transport the corpses to the crematorium where they're burned. No burial, no graves, no records. The Soviet prisoners arrive at Buchenwald unregistered. They're executed immediately. Their deaths aren't officially recorded. They simply disappear. The crematorium can process dozens of bodies per day. The ashes are scattered or buried in mass pits. And officially, these men never existed. From 1941 to 1943, approximately 8,000 Soviet prisoners of war are murdered this way at Buchenwald. Think about that number. 8,000 individuals. Each one had a name, a family, a life before the war. Each one was captured, transported, deceived, and shot in the neck by Commando 99. That's an average of about 10 executions per day for 2 years, though the actual rate varied. Some days might see 30 or 40 executions. Other days, none. But the facility operates steadily, methodically, processing thousands of human beings through a system designed to kill them as efficiently as possible, with minimal psychological impact on the killers. The victims are told they're being taken for medical screening, for work assignment processing, for height measurement needed for uniform fitting. Anything but the truth. They're marched into the stable building. They see what looks like a medical examination room. Nothing threatening. They're told to stand against the wall where the measuring device is. They comply because there's no reason not to. And then they're dead. The entire process from entering the room to being a corpse on a cart takes perhaps 2 minutes per victim. Industrial murder at its most efficient. But here's what makes this method psychologically devastating for those who survive to testify about it. Prisoner witnesses. Because Buchenwald is a large camp with thousands of inmates assigned to various work details, including commandos that service the SS facilities. Prisoners work as cleanup crews. They work in the crematorium. They see the carts full of bodies. They see the brown painted floor. They hear the shots through the walls. And they realize what's happening. German political prisoners, Polish resistance members, camp capos, they all know about Commando 99. They know about the measuring device, and they can do nothing to warn the Soviet POWs because there's no contact between regular camp prisoners and the condemned Soviets, who are kept in a separate special camp and marched directly to execution. The psychological impact on Commando 99 members themselves is harder to assess. After the war, several are captured and interrogated. Some testify at war crimes trials, and what emerges is that the deception method serves a specific purpose for the executioners. It makes killing easier. When you shoot someone face to face, when you look into their eyes and see their fear and they're begging for mercy, that takes a psychological toll. Studies of executioners throughout history, from firing squads to hangmen to modern prison staff, consistently show that killing another human being causes trauma even when it's legally sanctioned. The Nazi executioners of Commando 99 are spared that trauma. They don't see their victims' faces. They don't hear pleas for mercy. They just point a pistol at a wall and pull a trigger. The victim is an abstract target, a shape visible through a hole. The psychological distance created by that physical barrier makes it easier to kill again and again without mental breakdown. This is deliberate. The Nazi leadership learned from earlier mass killings that face-to-face execution causes problems. The Einsatzgruppen, the mobile killing units operating in occupied Soviet territory, conducted mass shootings throughout 1941 and 1942. They forced victims to lie in pits and shot them. They lined them up at the edges of ravines and shot them. They killed over 1 million people this way. But SS leaders noticed that many executioners developed psychological problems. Alcoholism, nightmares, mental breakdowns, some even committing suicide. The face-to-face nature of the killing, the crying children, the screaming women, the men begging, it destroyed some of the killers psychologically. Not out of moral compulsion, though a few did refuse to kill, but out of pure psychological trauma from the act itself. The genickschuss method, especially when combined with the deceptive facility, largely eliminates that problem. The killer doesn't have to witness suffering, doesn't have to see the humanity of the victim, doesn't have to hear pleas or watch families embrace one final time. The victim just stands against a wall, and the trigger is pulled, and it's over. This makes it possible for a handful of SS men to kill 8,000 people over 2 years without complete psychological breakdown. It's the same principle that makes it easier for a drone operator to kill targets on a screen than for an infantryman to shoot someone he can see up close. Distance, whether physical or psychological, makes killing easier. The efficiency of the system is what's most chilling. In a well-run execution facility using the genickschuss method, an executioner can kill dozens of people per day. The record holder, if that's the right term, is Soviet NKVD executioner Vasily Blokhin, who reportedly executed up to 300 people per day during the Katyn Forest massacre using a Walther PP pistol with neck shots. That's an execution every 2 or 3 minutes for 10 hours straight. He claimed he could sustain this pace without fatigue because the method was so efficient. One shot, body falls. Drag it out. Next victim. At Buchenwald, Commando 99 doesn't operate at that pace, but they don't need to. They're not trying to execute 20,000 people in a few weeks, like at Katyn. They're conducting steady, ongoing elimination of Soviet prisoners as they arrive at the camp. The pace is slower but sustained over years. The victims arrive in transports from Wehrmacht POW camps, selected by Gestapo screening commissions who identify commissars and politically dangerous elements based on interrogations, uniforms, papers, sometimes just arbitrary decisions. They're loaded onto trains, transported to concentration camps including Buchenwald, and marked for immediate execution. Most never see the main camp. They're taken directly from the train to the special facility. They're told lies about work assignments or medical screening, and they're killed. The entire process from arrival to cremation can be completed in a single day. A man can wake up in a Wehrmacht POW camp, be selected for transfer, spend all day on a train, arrive at Buchenwald in the evening, be executed that night, and be burning in the crematorium by morning. Efficient, industrial, horrifying. Other concentration camps develop similar facilities. At Sachsenhausen, north of Berlin, a more elaborate system is created at the Station Z killing facility, which includes shooting ranges, a gas chamber, and crematorium ovens. Over 13,000 Soviet POWs are executed there between September and November 1941 alone. At Mauthausen in Austria, the execution room is integrated into the underground bunker complex adjacent to the crematorium. The next shooting corner, the Genickschuss is used to execute hundreds, possibly thousands of victims. Czech civilians and resistance members are executed there after the 1942 assassination of Reinhard Heydrich. At these facilities, the deception is sometimes less elaborate than at Buchenwald. Some victims are simply told they're being photographed for identification purposes. They're positioned against a wall with a height scale behind them. They look at the camera, and an executioner standing behind shoots them through the neck from the back. The method spreads because it works. It's quiet. A single pistol shot is much less dramatic than machine gun fire. It's clean. One bullet makes far less mess than shooting someone multiple times in the chest. It's efficient. One executioner can kill many victims in succession. It uses minimal ammunition, important in wartime. And crucially, it minimizes psychological trauma to the executioners by creating distance between killer and victim. These factors make genickschuss the preferred method for killing Soviet POWs in concentration camps throughout 1941 and 1942. But then in 1942 and 1943, the method begins to be supplanted by gas chambers. The Nazis developed Zyklon B gas chamber facilities at Auschwitz and other extermination camps. These can kill hundreds of people at once with just a few kilograms of poison pellets. The efficiency is far greater. Instead of one executioner killing one victim at a time, a gas chamber can kill 1,000 people in 20 minutes with minimal staff. So as the Holocaust accelerates and the Nazis move towards systematic extermination of European Jews, the gas chambers become the primary killing method. Neck shooting continues for smaller-scale executions, for prisoners deemed especially dangerous, or for situations where gas chambers aren't available. But the Genickschussanlage facilities gradually see less use after 1943 as the industrialized gas murder system takes over. After the war, Allied investigators discover these facilities. At Buchenwald, liberating American forces find the converted stable, find the measuring device with its concealed hole, find the brown-painted floor. Surviving prisoners testify about Commando 99, about the carts full of bodies, about the steady stream of Soviet POWs marching to their deaths. The evidence is photographed, documented, presented at war crimes trials. Members of Commando 99 are prosecuted, some are executed, some serve prison terms. Wolfgang Otto, the unit leader, is convicted and sentenced. But many of the individual executioners are never identified. They disappear into post-war Germany, their crimes unknown, their names lost to history. Today, a replica of the Buchenwald Genickschussanlage stands at the memorial site. Visitors can see exactly how it worked. The measuring device, the hole in the wall, the space where the executioner stood. It's a sobering reminder of how systematic and calculated Nazi murders were. This wasn't random violence. This wasn't soldiers shooting prisoners in the heat of battle. This was premeditated, bureaucratic, industrialized killing. Someone designed that facility. Someone approved its construction. Someone trained the executioners. Someone kept records, however minimal. And 8,000 Soviet prisoners of war were murdered there, one by one, deceived until the final second. Their deaths erased from official records as if they never existed. The question that haunts historians is why the victims cooperated. Why didn't they realize what was happening? Surely after the first few hundred executions, word must have spread among Soviet POWs that Buchenwald was a death camp. The answer is isolation. The Soviet prisoners marked for execution weren't mixed with the general camp population. They had no contact with long-term inmates who might warn them. They'd been in Wehrmacht POW camps where conditions were terrible, but not necessarily immediately fatal. When told they were being transferred for work assignments, they had no reason to disbelieve. And crucially, the speed of the process left no time for warning systems to develop. Prisoners arrived, were executed same day or next day, and were cremated. There was no opportunity for word to spread back to Wehrmacht POW camps because none of the victims survived to tell the tale. The other factor is the deception itself. The facility looked legitimate. The height measuring device was real, functional. If you were the third or fourth person in line, you'd see the person ahead of you stand against the wall, get measured, then apparently walk through the door at the other end of the room to continue processing. You wouldn't see them collapse dead. You wouldn't see the cart. You wouldn't see anything alarming. The brown floor concealed blood. The walls blocked sound to some extent. The entire setup was designed to make the victims' final moments calm and cooperative. By the time you realized something was wrong, if you ever did, the bullet was already on its way. This level of deception, this calculated psychological manipulation, represents a particular kind of evil. It's not the hot rage of a massacre. It's not soldiers killing in combat. It's cold, bureaucratic, efficient murder dressed up as administrative processing. It treats human beings as units to be eliminated, problems to be solved. The facility designer who figured out where to put the hole in the wall, the SS administrator who approved painting the floor brown, the executioner who practiced his aim to ensure one-shot kills, all of them were engaged in systematic, premeditated murder on an industrial scale. And they did it efficiently, routinely, day after day, for years. The legacy of the genickschuss method extends beyond World War II. The Soviets continued using it for executions throughout the Stalin era and beyond. China reportedly still uses firing squad executions with shots to the head or neck. Some modern execution methods, like lethal injection, follow similar principles. Make the death as quick and clean as possible, minimize trauma to executioners and witnesses, create distance between the person pulling the trigger and the person dying. The psychology that made genickschuss effective, the separation of killer from victim, the industrial efficiency, the bureaucratic detachment, these factors remain relevant in any execution system. But the genickschuss Anlage itself, the deceptive facility designed to trick victims into positioning themselves for death, that represents a particular Nazi innovation in the technology of genocide. It takes the established execution method of neck shooting and adds industrial-scale deception and processing. It turns killing into an assembly line where victims don't even know their product's being eliminated. And it allowed a small number of SS men to murder 8,000 Soviet prisoners of war at Buchenwald alone, plus thousands more at other camps, with minimal psychological cost to the executioners. Today, when you visit Buchenwald Memorial, you can stand in the stable where this happened. You can see the replica of the measuring device. You can look through the hole where the pistol was aimed. And you're forced to confront the reality of industrialized murder. This wasn't some unique monster doing this. It was ordinary men, trained by the SS, following orders, carrying out systematic executions as part of their job. They weren't psychopaths, most of them. They were bureaucrats with guns, administrators of death, functionaries in a murder system. And that's what makes it so terrifying. Because if ordinary men can do this, given the right training, the right ideology, the right distance from their victims, then the capacity for this kind of evil exists in any society that decides to dehumanize certain groups and systematize their elimination. Never forget the 8,000 Soviet prisoners of war murdered at Buchenwald by Commando 99. Never forget the thousands more executed at other camps using the same method. Never forget that each one was an individual with a name, a family, a life, reduced to a statistic in the Nazi murder machine. And never forget that the facility that killed them still stands as a memorial, a warning about what happens when efficiency and bureaucracy are applied to genocide, when murder becomes an industrial process, when human beings are treated as problems to be eliminated through systematic, calculated, coldly efficient methods. What other buried truths from history should we uncover? What lessons must we learn about the mechanics of genocide and the psychology of mass murder? Let us know in the comments below, and subscribe for more historical truths that challenge everything you thought you knew. Because the story of the genickschuss Anlage isn't just history. It's a warning about how ordinary systems, ordinary people, and ordinary efficiency can be turned toward extraordinary evil when societies decide that certain groups don't deserve to live.